Hey everyone. Today I want to go over something about changing oil in small engine machinery. Now this is primarily going to be mowers. It does go towards other pieces, but primarily mowers, and primarily for equipment with oil filters. So here's the thing. There are two different types of small engine equipment when it comes down to oil: the splash and the pressurized. What you're going to see is this one has a filter, so it's not splash. So when that happens, you do have to change the filter in order to properly change your oil. So this is, it's very, very, very similar to changing your oil no matter what system you have of splash or whatnot, but the main differences between the two is this is going to keep the engine cleaner. It's going to be able to run a little longer. Anytime you have a filter, you're going to extend the life, and a splash system is very basic, rudimentary. Just the sheer movement of the crank, there's a dipper in there, like I said, it splashes around, shoots oil everywhere. If you've ever taken the oil dipstick out and then accidentally forget to put it back in and start it on, you instantly have oil spraying everywhere. Imagine that times everywhere inside your crank case. So that's what happens inside. Having said that, I do prefer this system, but it is more work. So let's go ahead and do it. First thing is first. Some people may or may not agree with this part, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out a dipstick. Get your oil catch container ready. Disconnect your spark plug. There we go. And I do also want to mention, you should have ran this for a minimum of 5 minutes beforehand. Cold oil, not the best thing to drain, because it's the viscosity is different. It's just a lot thicker, and you're not going to have time to get all the sludge out of it, so just don't do it unless you have to. If you have to, then you have to do what you have to do. Just know that you very well might have to change it again, but I didn't have to do that, so let's go ahead and do it. So now we're going to tip it over. It probably will spill a little bit. That's fine. Move some obstructions out of the way. And there we go. Now when you do this, the manufacturer understands that you should always be tipping your carburetor side up. So I've personally not ran across any equipment that had the oil fill or the dipstick on the side with the carburetor, but if you do, you're going to do it a different way. So we're going to let that drain, and we're going to get everything ready for the next part. Next part is this. While it's doing that, you need to get an oil filter. This is a Kawasaki, but whatever one you need to get, you have to get that specific one that you need. And we're going to let that drain just a little bit more, and we'll bring you back for the next step. I personally like to do this next step with the engine still open, and there's no, like, you didn't put the dipstick back in or anything like that. Some of these are going to be a little different than others, but you have to also be careful not to break it. If, like on this case, this one is plastic. I also prefer to wear a glove for this, because while I don't usually wear gloves for a lot of my repairs, I did let this run, and I don't really want to get burned. For cleanliness purposes, I'm going to take a towel and just kind of drape it under here. It's more likely than not we're going to have a little spillage. That's what happens. It's oil. maybe I'm not going to fold it. At least not for this one. And we'll clean it up afterwards, don't you worry. Okay, so now that we have that done, let's go ahead and get the oil filter removed. And just as you would expect, is leaking oil, but the pan is still underneath. How long is this drain? There we go. So here we go. I'm going to get this cleaned up and bring you back. So this next part I wouldn't say is a trick or anything, but I take the oil filter, I filled it up with oil, it's about half full, and then I let it sit for a little bit. I fill it back up to about a third of the way so I can see the oil. That just kind of saturates the filter. Now I'm going to take some dirty oil and rub it around the O-ring on the filter. That way when I push this on, it makes a good solid connection. Now it's probably going to spill a little bit, but that's what happens. Put it on as fast as you can to minimize the spilling. Okay, so this is a plastic piece. I don't really want to wrench on too hard, so I'm not going to, but that's about it. So why do you put the oil in the oil filter? Simple. The capacity, it's going to change with the empty oil filter. So let's say your capacity says 18 ounces. You put 18 ounces in there, it has to fill the filter, and while they should be telling you the capacity including what's in the oil filter, I feel like some of them might miss that mark. So what we're going to do is I'm going to look it up, look in your manual or online, look up how many ounces or milliliters or whatever you need to actually put into the engine, and then we're going to put that in there, and then we'll pretty much be done. While we're having good, meaningful conversations, let me flip this up, and we'll have another one. The reason why I like to do it this way is some of them will have a drain plug on the bottom. Those, in my opinion only, are really not that good. It's really hard to get to, especially in certain applications, this one being included, and they're almost always corroded, super dirty, and really hard to get to. I just don't like that. I don't. So I prefer doing it this way. You're not going to get a whole lot of sludge out of it, or well, you will, but you're not going to get all of it. I understand that. But especially in this case, it has a filter, and we are good to go. So right now I'm filling up a quart because I have a 5-quart here. I take an empty one and I fill it to the level that I know I need to have, or maybe a little extra. Right now I have about 10 ounces. That's about 300 milliliters for the metric folk. I know I need between 16 to 18. I have 16. I put 18 in here now. Well, 218. Which is a chug. Now, with a small engine funnel, put that in there and let it go. I am going to be watching the other side to make sure that everything is golden. The oil filter isn't leaking or anything. And I'm also, looks like it's good. I would suspect it's not going to have a problem, but you never know. I'm going to let this sit in its little home. I'm going to let it sit for a while as well, then we'll check it. Something I feel is very left out in a lot of oil changing videos. So looking at the oil, you want to see if there's any chunks or rainbow pieces in there, or is it a weird color? It's like a cream or milky color? Does it smell like gas? Now look at your old oil. The spark plug may be the eyes to the engine. The oil is probably a close second. It's going to tell you a whole lot about how it's doing. Now the reason why I let it sit there for a bit is because the tube excuse me, especially on the ones with a really long tube, will fill up with oil, and sometimes it will just kind of coat the end. You put your dipstick in and it's going to be giving you a wrong reading. Put it in. So we are right in between full and add. I think that should be good. Let's give it a pull. Let it splash around a little bit. Now, remember to plug in your spark plug. Smell fuel. Might plug this not all the way in. It could be the fact that I flooded it. So I'm just going to let it run for a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to take one more reading on the dipstick. And set around for a minute or two, let it run for about a minute or two after or before, so we should be good. Clean it. Let's test it again. And see, we are right at the add mark, so that's maybe a chug or two. We're right above the chug or the add mark, so that should be enough. I'm going to do the same thing again and I'll check it, but you know, just continue on until it is in the middle of the full and add. And that's it. Now the reason why it does that is because, like I said, it needs to fill the fuel filter, or excuse me, the oil filter. If you don't have an oil filter, you know, depending if it's cold outside or anything, the level, maybe you're checking on an uneven surface, you know, stuff like that, it can give you a false reading. So when you do check it, make sure it's level, and you let it run for a little bit to double check. You should be good to go. Thing that also you need to remember is not all of the engines are the same. Some will make you push the dipstick all the way down in and just not lock it. Some will make you just push it to a certain point because there's threads on it. You need to double check. Hondas, you don't thread it at all. It actually tells you that on the like a sticker is right next to the dipstick. Briggs, completely not the same. They just have like a little lock that you just press it in until it won't go any further, then you lift it out and that's it. So this one, more or less the same as the Briggs, doesn't say anything about checking it any other way, so that's how I'm going to assume, unless it tells you, you could just push it down as far as you can and check it. Okay, well, so this is how you change the oil and oil filter on a small engine. If you do not have the oil filter, like I said, it's very, very similar. The only thing you don't do is just put the oil filter on. I would hope I wouldn't have to mention that, but that's about it. Okay, well, I'm gonna get cleaned up and dispose of the old oil, and we should be set. If you like what you see, keep on watching, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good day.